In the last video, I was talking to you about prevalence. Today, I will be talking to you about incidence. Prevalence is basically a snapshot of how widespread a disease is in a population at a given time, reflecting the total number of cases, both new and existing. That is the burden of disease. Whereas incidence is the rate at which new cases occur. Rate at which new cases, see, new cases occur over a period of time, not the total number of existing cases, not the total number of existing cases. Okay, that is the number of new cases. Time can be day, month, year. This must be specified. It basically measures the rapidity with which new cases are occurring in a population. It is an appropriate measure used to estimate the risk. Of acquiring a disease. Then another similar sounding variable here is cumulative incidence or attack rate. This can be memorized by Central Intelligence Agency. Cumulative incidence is also known as attack rate. Okay, so what is the formula for this? I'll tell you. Cumulative incidence is people who become ill upon total people exposed into 100. This will give you the cumulative incidence. Fine. Another one very similar, but often people get confused between cumulative incidence and incidence density. Incidence density. So incidence density or ID. Okay, this reflects more exactly. It reflects more exactly the person time observed. The person time observed. And the formula for incidence density is number of new cases upon total person time of observation. Total person time of observation. This is the formula. Okay. Now let me talk something more about incidence density. So to make it crystal clear, I'll give you a proper explanation for this. Incidence density, also called a person time incident rate. Person time incidence rate. This is calculated by dividing the number of new cases of a disease by the total person time. This I have told you. It measures the rate at which incidence density basically measures the rate at which new cases occur. Measures the rate at which new cases of a disease occur in population over time. It reflects risk. Incidence density reflects risk, not death. Not death. So based on our knowledge of prevalence and incidence, we can safely conclude that prevalence is equal to incidence multiplied by the duration of disease. Simple, right? Then now important patterns you need to know here. High prevalence and low incidence. This is seen in the case of long-standing disease like type 2 diabetes mellitus. Prevalence is high because many people suffer, but incidence is low, like newly occurring cases are low. Whereas low prevalence and high incidence is seen in the case of, yes, absolutely correct, any acute illness like respiratory tract infection, like common cold. This is very acute. So in the case of acute, you will see incidence to be high. In the case of chronic, you will see prevalence to be high. This is extremely valuable information for you. Okay. Then talking about the case fatality ratio, also known as the CFR. This is basically defined by the number of deaths upon number of diseased cases. This basically reflects the severity. case fatality ratio, or yes, case fatality ratio it is called as, reflects the severity. This you can remember easily by clinical features, CF clinical features, RS rupees, Indian rupee symbol, RS. Clinical features in rupees. So this is basically, if I would ask you a definition of case fatality ratio, then it can be expressed as a proportion or a ratio, not as rate. This is extremely important. Case fatality ratio not as a rate, expresses as a ratio. It is basically the proportion of people diagnosed with a disease who die from it. Diagnosed with a disease who die from it. A low case fatality ratio means, yes, very good, excellent whoever said this, increased prevalence. Why? Because it means that low case fatality, so more people will live with disease longer, because case fatality, number of deaths occurring, is low. Obviously prevalence will be high. This is extremely important. So to conclude today's discussion, what I would like to say as a take home message, prevalence is a static measure which is taken at a point of time, whereas incidence is a dynamic measure taken over a certain point of time. Okay, this brings us to an end of today's topic. Bye.